والله يدعو إلى دار السلام ويهدي من يشاء إلى صراط مستقيم.
Islam 101.
Bismillah. Welcome to another episode of Islam 101, a program in which we're trying to bring to you, our respected viewers, a clear and concise understanding concerning the basic tenets of the religion of Islam. I'm your host, Abu Usamah Adh Dhahabi, and we have here today a panel of respected guests. Today, we're going to deal with another important topic that Al-Islam has shed light on, and it has shown its importance in the practical application of Prophet Muhammad in his authentic sunnah and his authentic way. And that is the topic of ad-du'a, which means supplication. The servant, the slave, the individual, the need that he has to supplicate to Allah, to call on God Almighty to help him in his life and to help him in his affairs. Whatever religion a person happens to belong to, there's not a religion except that the supplication plays an important role in the application of that particular religion. Islam is no different. As a matter of fact, in the religion of Al-Islam, the supplication is one of the highest forms of worship. The Prophet of Al-Islam, Muhammad, the son of Abdullah, may Allah be pleased with him and may his salutations forever be upon him and upon his family members. He told us in an authentic hadith, ad-du'a huwa al-ibadah. Verily, supplication is, in and of itself, worship. It is one of the greatest forms of worship. As a matter of fact, he informed the Muslims that Allah Almighty, He becomes angry with the individual who does not supplicate to Him. And that's clear why that is the case. Because it is a well-known fact. As Muslims and other than Muslims, we know that human beings are weak. We don't know all of the answers concerning our own personal lives. And since God Almighty is the one who created us, and God Almighty is the one who knows everything concerning our affairs, it only makes sense that a person would turn to God, turn to Allah for guidance, for sustenance, for an increase in the good that comes to him from Allah the Most High. In the Quran, we have a number of verses that also instruct us to call on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah the Most High. Allah said in the Quran, وَقَالَ رَبُّكُمْ أُدْعُونِي أَسْتَجِبْ لَكُمْ. And your Lord has said, He has commanded, call on me and I will answer your call. So that is a command from Allah the Most High, ordering mankind, ordering the Muslim, that we should turn to Allah in complete and sincere devotion by asking Him for His sustenance, by asking Him for His guidance, by asking Him for His protection. That's the religion of Al-Islam. And as we mentioned, one of the main reasons behind us calling on Allah, calling on God Almighty, is the simple fact that we are weak in our creation. Allah mentioned in the Quran, you people are poor as it relates to Allah. When we have been commanded and ordered to spend out of our monies to help the poor, to help the community, that spending and the command to spend is not because our monies go to Allah and it helps Allah per se. This is something that is a ridiculous notion altogether. No, our spending, it helps those people who receive the help and it helps the one who is spending. We are the ones who are poor. We are the ones who are in need. Allah is not in need of our money, nor is He in need of our help. He doesn't need us to carry His religion. He doesn't need us to do anything. But He commands us to do these things as a test and a trial, also so that other people will benefit. So the point from all of that is, we are weak and we are in need. And therefore, we are the ones who should make the supplication. That woman, for an example, who has conceived a child, and she's walking around on the earth, and she has a baby in her womb. She doesn't have the ability, no matter what the situation is, no matter how much money she has, no matter what the level of no matter what medical attention she's receiving, and she has the ability to receive, no one can help her to deliver that child with a good deliverance except Allah. So quite naturally, her fitrah, and we spoke about the fitrah a number of times in some of our previous episodes. The fitrah is the natural disposition that Allah has created the human being on. The natural disposition for the human being to say, there's nothing worthy of worship except Allah. God is one. God is not the sun. God is not the moon. I'm not God. I didn't create this. That is the fitrah. Part of that fitrah as well is the natural disposition that the person feels within himself to call on a higher power, to reach out to a higher power, especially during times of need. Like, as I just mentioned, the woman who wants to deliver a child. The person who is in an airplane and then they're suffering from the turbulence that happens up in the sky. And he thinks and he feels that the plane is going to crash and is going to fall out of the sky. The natural inclination of every single human being is to turn to a higher power, to turn to the God that they believe in, and to start to make those supplications. So when we look at Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, may the peace and blessings of Allah be upon him, we find that he showed us a practical application as it relates to this supplication. From the time that he woke up in the morning, all the way to the time that he put his head on his pillow again at night, he spent his day and he preoccupied himself with supplication. What I mean by that is not that he sat in his room or he sat in the mosque, he sat in the place of worship and he just prayed all day and he supplicated all day. No. But before embarking upon any particular deed or action, we will find him supplicating. And that's why, for an example, whenever we begin our episodes and our programs here at Islam 101, you may have become accustomed to hearing me saying, Bismillah, wassalatu wassalam, ala rasulillah. That is a supplication. We've been taught these supplications and we're just trying to follow Prophet Muhammad in his authentic sunnah. Allah said about Prophet Muhammad in the Quran, verily you have in the Messenger of Allah a perfect example for those who remember Allah much and who hope to meet Allah. For those who believe in Allah on the last day and they remember Allah much and they hope to meet Allah. You have in him a perfect example. So as a result of that, we begin the process of almost every single action that we do with a particular supplication. When we wake up, there is a supplication to be made. When we put our clothes on, there's a supplication that Prophet Muhammad taught us. When the person is about to enter into the toilet, there's a supplication. When he comes out of the toilet, when he leaves his house, when he walks to the masjid, when he begins his job, there's a supplication. There is not a single action that the human being can do in his daily life except there are supplications. Supplications for marriage, supplications for welcoming the newborn child, supplications for almost every single aspect of the existence of the human being. So it is a very important aspect of the everyday life of the Muslim. As it relates to the hadith that we mentioned, the statement of Prophet Muhammad, ad-du'a huwa al-ibadah. The supplication, it is worship. With this being the case, it should be understood that every form of ibadah, every form of worship in Islam, it has to have two conditions. In order for it to be accepted by Allah, in order for it to be accepted under the umbrella of the legislation of Islam, if it is missing one or both of these two conditions, then that particular form of worship, no matter who's doing it, is going to be rejected. The first condition for every form of worship is that the person has to have sincerity. He has to do the particular worship for the exclusive and sole pleasure of Allah. He wants to do it to please Allah. He shouldn't do it in order to have the people to put praises on him. He shouldn't do it in order to gain something monetarily from the creation. He has to do it solely and strictly for the pleasure of Allah. That's the first condition. The second condition is it has to be in accordance to what Prophet Muhammad brought. sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And these two strict conditions, they will always protect the servant from creating for himself a new religion and from introducing in the religion that which Allah has not sanctioned. So we want to always remember this, always. Maybe you guys can write this down. The two conditions that are needed for every form of ibadah, every form of worship, no matter what the worship is, prayer, fasting, no matter what it is, giving dawah or educating people about the religion of Islam. The first condition is, it has to be done with sincerity, al-ikhlas, with sincerity. If there's no sincerity, then it will be rejected. The second condition is, it has to be in accordance to the sunnah. It has to be in accordance to the way of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa ala alihi wa sallam. Now, with that being the case, the dua or the supplication is ibadah. So, it has to be done with sincerity. When the person supplicates, he does not supplicate and make dua to any saints. He does not supplicate and make dua to any angel from the angels. Not to Jibril, Gabriel, Michael, or any other angel. He doesn't supplicate to Prophet Muhammad even, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. He only supplicates to Allah and to Allah alone. To supplicate to a man who's buried in a grave. Unfortunately, I'm very sad to say, this is a common practice in certain Muslim countries. This is something that is counterproductive and is against the religion of Islam. And it cannot be understood or accepted by any stretch of the imagination by those people who know this religion. So, we make supplication only to Allah. The second one, as it relates to supplicating, is it has to be in accordance to what Prophet Muhammad brought us and what he showed us. So we supplicate the way he supplicated. We supplicate in the places that he told us to supplicate. And we leave alone supplicating in a way that he didn't tell us, or in a place that he didn't inform us or instruct us, or in amounts or the numbers that people attach to certain words that they say. For an example, some people believe if a man or a woman, they want to get married. We have people in our panel who are not married. They want to get married. They will be told and informed, if you want to get married, then you should say, Ya Wajid, Ya Wajid, Ya Wajid, which means the finder. You say this 1,000 times, and then Allah will find for you and make it easy for you to get married. This number 1,000 times, 400 times, 500 times. We do not embrace those types of concepts unless we find from Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam in his authentic sunnah that which would allow us to do such a thing. So now we want to share with you, as it relates to supplication, what are some of the things that a person can do, a Muslim can do, as it relates to having his supplication answered. Because many people will make dua and supplicate to Allah, but Allah, the Most High, doesn't accept their dua. We'll deal with those things, inshallah, when we come back from our break. And we hope that you'll tune in again to share with us and to find out about the rest of this most important issue. Looking forward to seeing you again.
Islam 101. Islam 101.
Welcome back to Islam 101, where we're dealing with the issue and the topic of the importance of a dua or supplicating in Islam, and the need that the Muslim has to connect himself to his Lord, to ask Allah the Most High to answer his prayers, the needs that he has in his life, and there's so many. We're going to open the door right now for discussion from our respected panel, inshallah. So if you brothers have any questions or any comments, feel free to put them forth now. Anyone has anything? Sardar.
Just, is there any obligatory supplications which we have to do?
Are there any obligatory supplications that the Muslim has to do? You can't say that there is an obligatory supplication. I don't know of any supplication that is an obligation that has to be done necessarily. You take an issue like a salat. When we make the salat, we read Surah Al-Fatiha, which is the first surah of the Quran. And Surah Al-Fatiha is a supplication. It is a dua. And the proof of that is at the end of reciting this particular surah, we say, Ameen, At the end of reading the particular surah, Al-Fatiha, in our prayer, we say Ameen, which means, oh Allah, please answer that supplication. So from that angle, reading Surah Al-Fatiha in the prayer is an obligation. From that angle, it is. But what we know and what we're understanding to be the normal supplication, I don't know of any supplication that you have to do. The supplications that Rasulullah taught us, they are his sunnah. What we say on the day of Arafah, when we're making the pilgrimage. What we say after the prayer. You don't have to say those things, even though it's better that you do say them. And Allah knows best. What about you, Nick? You have something?
Yeah, I've got it. If someone doesn't ask his Lord often, is he arrogant?
If someone doesn't ask Allah and he doesn't supplicate, can we consider him to be an arrogant person? Yes, this is one of the clear signs of al-kibr, or arrogance. It could be that the person is mutaghafil. The person is just not cognizant. He's sleeping. He's not recognizing the right that Allah has over him. So he's living his life without being conscious of Allah and the right of Allah. But for the most part, people who do not supplicate to Allah, it is a sign of kibr, or arrogance. Allah said in the Quran, إِنَ الَّذِينَ يَسْتَكْبِرُونَ عَنْ إِبَادَتِي سَيَدْخُلُونَ جَهَنَّمْ دَاخِرِينَ. Those people who are arrogant and they don't supplicate to me, they're going to be forced to enter into the hellfire with humiliation. So Allah described the condition of those people who don't supplicate to Him as being mustakbirin, as being those people who are arrogant. Yes.
Dear Sheikh, sometimes I supplicate to Allah, but I don't find any answer to my supplication. Does that mean I'm wrong? Is my dua is wrong or what?
It could be that a person will supplicate to Allah, the Most High, and he doesn't get an answer to his particular supplication. That's possible. That Allah doesn't reward him for something that he's doing or for something that he's not doing. But it is not necessarily an indication that Allah is not going to reward him with what he's asking for. It can be a test. It can be a trial. So he has to be consistent and he has to continue to supplicate. He has to continue to supplicate. The Prophet told us, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that Allah will answer the supplication of the servant as long as the servant does not become mustajil, as long as the servant is not in haste. They say, Ya Rasulullah, how does the servant become one who is hasty? He says, the servant, I asked Allah and I asked Allah and I asked Allah, and Allah didn't give me what I asked for, so he abandoned supplication. So his similitude is like the farmer. The farmer who comes and he plants his seeds. And he waters the seeds. And he continues day after day to water the seeds. After a month or a month and a half, the farmer says, I've been watering the seeds and nothing is growing forth, so I'm going to abandon my field and I'm not going to wait for the vegetation to grow forth. The successful farmer would never take that position. He knows that he has to continue to tend to his crop, to tend to the seeds that he planted, and he never gives up hope because eventually, sooner or later, inshallah, the seed is going to send forth its fruit. As it relates to supplication, there are certain times, certain places, and certain people who, if and when they supplicate, their supplication is answered because of who they are, or because of where they are, or because of that particular time that they're supplicating. For an example, Prophet Muhammad told us that there are 3 people who supplicate to Allah, and Allah will answer their supplication. The first one is the parent who supplicates for the child. So that goes to show anyone who is a parent, he should spend his time asking Allah to guide the child, asking Allah to protect the child, asking Allah to make the child successful in his studies or other than that. The second person is the person who is fasting. Whether it's the fast of Ramadan, the obligatory fast of Al-Islam, or whether it is a fast that is just from the individual who's fasting for whatever reason. So the one who is fasting for Allah, when he supplicates to Allah, his supplication is accepted. And the third person that was mentioned in this particular hadith is the one who is traveling in the land. The person who's traveling in the land and he has left and forsaken his home, he becomes even weaker than his normal state. Because the person who leaves his land and he becomes gharib, or a stranger in the earth, he goes to places where he's a stranger and he doesn't know people, people don't know him. He doesn't have the resources that he would normally have if he was in his place of residence. Like many of us, we visit places and it's not our land. We don't have our relatives around us. We don't have our families around us. We don't have all of our monies around us. So our state and our condition is one of more weakness. Already we're weak. وَخُلِقَ الْإِنسَانُ ضَعِيفًا. Mankind has been created weak. When a person leaves the place that he knows and he's accustomed to, he becomes even more weak. So, as a result of the mercy of Allah on that individual, the traveler's supplication is accepted. In addition to those three people who were mentioned, the Prophet, he told us, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that when the rain comes down out of the sky, that is one of the times that a person should supplicate. The rain denotes and signifies part of the mercy of Allah. If Allah held the rain in the sky, especially those people who come from countries where the climate is quite hot, we know how problematic the life can be without the rain. So whenever the rain comes down, this is the barakah, the blessing and the rahmah, the mercy that Allah has extended and showered the people with. So at that particular time, it is one of the many times that a person should supplicate, because the supplication during the coming down of the rain is accepted by Allah. In addition to that, anyone who has been given the opportunity and the favor of Allah to visit his house in Mecca, which was and is the first place of worship that was built in the earth. The prophets and the messengers before Muhammad used to go to that place. Moses, Jesus, Abraham, Ismail, they used to go to the Kaaba in Mecca, that is known as in Saudi Arabia. What is known as Saudi Arabia today, the most sacred place for the Muslims. In that place in Mecca, at that place, the supplication is also accepted, especially under the door of the Kaaba, which is, as we mentioned, the first Baytullah in the earth. It's the first house of Allah, place that has been taken for worship by mankind. In addition to that, concerning the fiqh, or understanding of supplicating and how to supplicate correctly, we already mentioned that it should be done with sincerity and it should be done according to the sunnah. One of the most important aspects of supplicating, which is connected to the question of Brother Usamah, a person may supplicate and his supplication is not accepted. Rasulullah told us about a man who was traveling in the earth. His hair was disheveled and his clothes were dirty because he's a traveler in the earth. So he turned to Allah with sincerity and he raised his hands up. Raising the hands in supplication is also one of the reasons why a person's supplication will be accepted. So this particular man who was traveling and he raised his hand and he was in need of Allah and he had sincerity. He raised his hands up and he started to supplicate. And he started to say, oh my Lord, I need this, I need that. Help me, oh my Lord, with sincerity. Rasulullah said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he supplicating, but his food is impermissible. His drink is impermissible. And he clothed himself with what was impermissible. And he nourished himself with what was impermissible. So how and why would Allah accept his supplication? So that goes to show that if a person wants his supplication to be accepted, he has to have the fear of Allah as it relates to the way he lives his life. He shouldn't steal people's money. He shouldn't drink and intake and eat those things that are not permissible in the religion of Islam. He should wear what is only permissible. In the case of a man, the men in Islam don't wear silk, for an example. The men in Islam, they don't wear gold. The woman in Islam, she has to wear hijab. She has to wear the proper Islamic attire and cover herself. So how is it possible that the woman, she doesn't remember Allah by wearing her proper Islamic clothing, and then when something happens to her, she wants to supplicate with sincerity. Oh my Lord, oh my Lord. She supplicates with sincerity. She supplicates for her child. She supplicates while she's fasting. But the way she dresses, it disqualifies her supplication from being accepted by Allah the Most High. So those are some of the issues that we need to come to know about as it relates to the fiqh and the understanding of supplication. I would like to add on to that some more additional points that are extremely important. Sometimes you will find after the prayer, once the Muslims finish the obligatory prayer that's done in congregation, sometimes we come together and we start to supplicate in a collective manner. The imam, or the one who led the prayer, he starts to say certain things and the people are making that supplication with him. This type of supplication should be avoided because of what we mentioned before. And that is, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Muhammad, he taught us everything we needed to know about our religion. Everything. And at this particular time, the supplication that he made was an individual supplication between him and between Allah. Another very important point and issue from what we do that's wrong as it relates to supplication, and we need to have this weapon of supplication because supplication is the weapon of the Muslim. It's the weapon that he uses against his arch enemy, the Satan. One of the things that we find people doing is a person wants to supplicate, but instead of supplicating to Allah directly, he goes to someone who is in the grave. Or he goes to a friend and he says, you are a righteous man. You're from the people who are from the awliya of Allah. Your connection with Allah is great. Allah loves you. And he says, supplicate for me. He may even pay him money, but this individual, he doesn't supplicate. It's permissible for you to ask someone, please supplicate for me. This is permissible. Whenever I supplicate for someone else, like I ask Allah to guide my mother and my father to Al-Islam, they're not Muslims. This is permissible. But I cannot rely on someone else to supplicate, and I don't supplicate at all. You go to someone who you think is righteous, you ask him to supplicate for you, but you also should continue to supplicate for yourself or for those who are around you. So this is what we have to offer you today concerning the issue of supplication. This is an important issue. I think you should buy the books that concern themselves with this particular issue so that we can come to know about the fiqh and understanding, the correct and proper understanding of this most important issue. So we bring this segment to a close. May Allah give us the success and you as well. And may He establish our hearts and feet firmly upon Al-Islam.
Islam. Islam.